We are on the final stage for week 11, writing to mass social media. Part 2 of the presentations is all about less is more. And I want you to think about this picture of this little tiny house. It has a bedroom, has a kitchen, has a bathroom, and it has a living room. It has everything that you need in a big house, just compacted and put into a smaller space. That's what we are going to do with our writing. We're going to look at some strategies that you can follow to help you do something like that. Again, keep in mind this is for communication, mass social media. It goes against everything that you've been told for academic writing, because in that case, they usually have a certain amount of pages that you have to write or a certain amount of words. We are flipping that module on its back so that we can write to our communication audience. Okay, remember our email from part 1? We did make some improvements where we added our bluff statements and we put the information into chunks to make it more inviting for our reader. We are going to take that a step further today so that we can make it even better. And we're going to do that just by following some strategies in how to make your writing more condensed. And in this case, less is more is where the phrase that we're going to follow. Great example from the wonderful F. Scott Fitzgerald, taken from The Great Gatsby. One long sentence here. Its vanished trees, the trees that had made way for Gatsby's house, had once pandered in whispers to the last and greatest of all human dreams. For a transitory, enchanted moment, man must have held his breath in the presence of this continent, compelled into an aesthetic contemplation he neither understood nor desired, face to face for the last time in history with something commiserate to his capacity for wonder. If you're an English lit major, that sentence made you happy. But for everybody else in the world, it's very wordy, very complex in its meaning, not what we're looking for in the writing that you're doing here in this course. I want you to forget about F. Scott Fitzgerald and be more like Ernest Hemingway. Oak Park, the home of broad lawns and narrow minds. He says a lot in this short sentence. He got straight to the point. And obviously doesn't care for the people that live in Oak Park. And then George Orwell tells us, if it's possible to cut a word out, always cut it out. Keep that in mind, okay, as you go through your writing. These are some lean writing strategies we're going to talk about today. Step 1, cut nominalizations. Step 2, reduce expletives, and not the type that you're probably thinking about. 3, you're going to eliminate passive voice. And 4, condense wordy phrases. So let's take a look at what that means. So nominalization is where you take the verb and change it into the noun version of itself. So demonstrate would become demonstration. Remove becomes removal. Argue becomes an argument, etc. You may think, well, what's the big deal? It's just a word. But the way that the word is written means that you have to add additional words for the sentence to make sense, and you're increasing the words that you're using. Let's take a look at that. Nominalizations focus on the result of the action, so it takes that noun, rather than process that leads to that result. And then you can see how the nominalization is formed. You've got your verb, you add an ending to it, and it becomes a nominalization. Explain plus tion becomes explanation. Appear plus ance becomes appearance. And careless, adding ness becomes carelessness. Okay? How you can catch them when you are reading your sentences back. If you see an articles of the, a, or an, then you know that you probably have a nominalization in that sentence. Researchers conducted an investigation into the problem. Change it to research. Researchers investigate the problem. Breaking it down, making smaller sentence. Suffixes ans, ing, nes, ment, tion. Maintenance, eating, healthiness, enjoyment, education are all examples of nominalization. So watch out for them in your writing when you are writing for mass social media. Here's a couple examples for you. The statement was written as arguments over small concerns are something most families experience. 9 words. Argue with the word MENTS at the end made it into a nominalization. Let's flip that. Most families argue over small concerns. You've reduced from 9 words to 6. You've made your statement more factual, and because it's quicker, it's actually a stronger argument. Most families argue over small concerns. End of sentence. End of discussion. Okay. The applicability of the legislation exists across several key policy areas. 11 words, and applicable has BILITY at the end of it. If we change that to the legislation applies to several key policy areas, we have condensed that into 8 words, and we have made our sentence stronger. You might be thinking, well, so what? It's only 3 words here, 4 words there. But as you're writing, especially if you are writing any form of communication for, say, a newspaper or a professional blog, less is more. And so you want to get in the habit of cutting out these words now to make your sentences stronger and so that your overall word count isn't too high. And there are some phrases and ones that we have could be revised to. Instead of saying gave a report, change it to reported. Instead of made a decision, decided. Very simple, very basic, but it's a good way to change some of the phrases. Get rid of those extra words, you really don't need them. Okay. Strategy number 2, you're going to reduce your expletives. And expletives are basically just superfluous words that you don't need in your sentence. I've highlighted a few in this little example. It was a simple rule my parents made that got me interested in the trumpet. Is your expletive words. Take them out. A simple rule my parents made that got me interested in the trumpet. No television or computer time until I'd practice for half an hour. There you go. Next sentence, take out there, where, and then start it. Many days when this rule angered me, but when I look back, it seems my parents knew best. Take out it seems, and it becomes many days when this rule angered me. When I look back, my parents knew best. So if you're taking out these extra words, that's your expletives in your sentence. Okay. Remember that they are just words that do not add any meaning to a sentence. And good examples of ones that we'll find a lot are words like there, here, it has, there is, there will be, indeed, it is a fact. And just keep in mind from a professional writer's point of view, expletives hide the substance of a sentence behind the filler words. And eventually your reader's going to get bored with all these extra words and meaning of the content is lost. And that's something that you always want to avoid happening. Okay, how to catch expletives. Sentences that begin with it or there are usually an indication that you're using expletives. It was a simple rule that my parents made. Why not just write a simple rule my parents made? There were many days when this rule angered me. This rule angered me. Many days this rule angered me. Different ways you can write it without those expletives. And there's a wonderful example of expletives in the work of Charles Dickens. Very acceptable for literature, not acceptable when you're trying to write in mass social media. So don't be like Charles Dickens. There's an example for you. It is inevitable that oil prices will rise. 8 words of your content. Changing that to oil prices will inevitably rise becomes 5 words. You've cut out 3 words and 2 expletives. There are likely to be many constituents seeking relief from this proposal. Written in 12 words. There are your expletives. Rewrite it to say many constituents will likely seek relief from this proposal. You've cut out 3 words, 2 of which were your expletives. The third category is eliminating the passive voice. And there's our good friend, Mr. Yoda. Much to learn you still have. Fortunately, I don't have a Yoda impersonation voice to impress you with. So you'll just have to hear that in your head. Okay, what is a passive voice? When the object of an action is made into the subject of a sentence. So the ball is the object. The verb was thrown, so it's also past tense. And the subject is Jess. The ball was thrown by Jess. Passive voice in communication is less concise, less direct, and it tends to bury the main idea. So how could we rewrite this sentence so that it's no longer passive? Think about indications that tell you that a word is in fact passive. Words that end with ed was eliminated from the budget, discriminated against, portrayed in a negative light. All these are passive words with that ed at the end. And if you think back to when we talked about nominalization, some of those we added the ed, like resulted in became result, like the result of became resulted. That's okay. So you just got to think about it, but sometimes you're going to want to take out that passive voice. And so go back to our sentence about the ball was thrown by Jess. You have the object, the verb, and the subject. Flip that around and put the subject, verb, then object, and the sentence become Jess threw the ball. It's more active, it's more forceful, and it helps to keep your reader engaged. Finally, you want to condense wordy phrases. Our wonderful Henry David Thoreau, our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify, simplify. Good rule to go by in your life. These wordy phrases can be replaced by just one word. Again, if my slides were interactive, these would slide in, but we will just need to read through them. The reason for, change that to simply because. Due to the fact that becomes since. In the event that, simply if. In a situation where, change that to when. Okay, and then look in that last one, example, you have gotten rid of 3 words. And you've made your sentence more powerful to begin with because you're when this happens. Much better. Okay, so takeaway from part 2, less is more. Just remember that tiny house, and you'll do great in this part of the writing process. Minimize your word count to maximize your message's power. Less is more, and you can do that by using the 4 categories: cut nominalizations, reduce expletives, eliminate passive voice, and condense wordy phrases. My grandma always told me, look after the pennies and the pounds will take care of themselves. Same as your phrase here, pennies add up to dollars. Each word that you can get rid of in your writing is money in the bank for you if you are writing professionally in a communication context. That is the wrap up for week 11. There is a couple of quick questions at the bottom of this part of the assignment. There is no right or wrong answer to this, so please be honest with your feedback. I have never taught this particular lesson online, and I really do not like the Discord that I have. Typically, this is a very interactive lesson that I give in the classroom, lots of hands-on experience. We use task cards, we play games, but there was no way to do this online. So I am interested in your thoughts on this. Be brutally honest. I promise you I can take it. And when you hit next to the bottom, you'll get a preview of your final project for this class, which will be due in week 15. That's all I have for you. Have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you online.